Libra season is here, which means we have also reached our September equinox, a time when light and dark find a brief yet potent equilibrium. This pivot point for the sun signals a change in the season of nature, a shift in the living world around us, and it invites us to remember that we too are seasonal bodies and that we are allowed to shift and change shape as our environments do, that we are capable of responding to change in ways that help us navigate what's right in front of us, not what happened yesterday and not what awaits us tomorrow. And this Libra season specifically is going to be about accepting that the way we find balance today is going to look different from the way we find balance tomorrow and the next day. We are going to be asked to get comfortable with some level of fluctuation and fluidity. Hey friends, it's Jasmine from Jasmine's Astrology, but you can call me Jay, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are here to chat about Libra season. So in 2024, the sun will be moving through the sign of Libra, marking Libra season from September 22nd until October 22nd. That's when Scorpio season starts, the most wonderful time of the year, but we'll get to that. For now, we're talking about Libra season. Let's start with some basics. Libra is an air sign, and air signs are a lot about interacting and connecting and bringing things together. So this can be a season where our attention really turns towards conversing and collaborating. The element of air also relates to the mind, and so we might find we're craving more intellectual stimulation, more mental stimulation. We're feeling curious, we're wanting to learn, and we're ready to share and exchange ideas and information, especially with other people. And Libra is ruled by the planet Venus, which is a planet of togetherness and partnership, and so there's an added emphasis towards focusing on being in some kind of exchange with others, wanting to be in some kind of reciprocal dynamic. This is a season of collaboration over competition. There is pleasure to be gained through social interaction and finding a sense of harmony with others, especially via language, communication, and other mental processes. Libra is also a cardinal sign, and cardinal signs are the ones that mark the beginnings of new seasons of nature. So anytime the sun moves into one of our cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, we shift into a new season. For Libra, it is the beginning of autumn, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere. And so cardinal signs mark a pivot point, a transition point for the sun. So cardinal signs are initiators. They begin things, they put things into motion. And with Libra, we can see sort of the initiation of new relationships, new collaborative projects, or even just new chapters or new ways of being within those types of dynamics. Libra's symbol is the scales, sometimes called the scales of justice. And there is this core desire for Libra energy to bring balance and harmony to all things, all situations, all relationships. It seeks to achieve equity and inclusivity, which can sometimes come at the expense of Libra itself. Its attention can be so fixed on the other that its own needs fall by the wayside. And so while Libra season can be a really great time to initiate new strategies for fighting for justice and equality, for listening to that voice inside of us that says, this situation is definitely not equal and fair for everyone involved. How can we tweak it? How can we improve things so that everybody kind of gets a fair say, a fair go? It's a great time for that, but we also want to remember that the self is part of that everyone and is also worthy of balance and equality. People pleasing and going along to get along are definitely some challenges that we can face with a lot of Libra energy. And although it might seem like not rocking the boat is a really easy way to keep things peaceful and harmonious, it's not really a true harmony or equilibrium when whoever or whatever is keeping the peace isn't saying their piece. And so during Libra season, if and probably when we find ourselves trying to see both sides of a situation, weighing the pros and cons, trying to allow two points of view to have equal airtime, it might be really helpful to remember that our own ideas, our own knowing, our own words can also be part of the conversation. The other thing about the scales is that it's not a one time balancing act, it's something that's always in motion. Cardinal signs respond to changing situations, they react. So, Libra energy is in this state of shifting to one side or the other as imbalances happen, as extremes start to win out, and then the attempt is to bring things back into moderation. As I mentioned, the beginning of Libra season coincides with the September equinox, again, the autumnal equinox here in the Northern Hemisphere. But really, regardless of whatever season we're entering, there is a new balance that must be sought. Here in the Northern Hemisphere, the hours of daylight are slowly decreasing as we enter the darker half of the year. And so the ways that we found balance and steadiness and equality during the summer months or the light half of the year in general, that's kind of up for review now. We can't live in the exact same ways in these different halves of the year. The changing levels of light and dark require us to establish new footing, new methods of give and take, new types of cooperation and reciprocity. What was fair and equitable in the summer months might not strike that same sense of harmony during the autumn and beyond. So we're adjusting and reacting to the changing situations in order to initiate new ways of being. And I really think this process of adjusting and calibrating is an ongoing factor for the next several weeks, because when we zoom out just a little bit and look at the context in which this particular Libra season is beginning, we see a lot of indicators for things being in flux, being in motion, and being a little wobbly. And I say this because for nearly all of Libra season, we're going to have 4 planets transiting through signs where they just aren't at their best, where it can kind of be an uphill battle to act and behave in ways that feel normal and without limitation. The sun in Libra is in its place of fall. Venus will be in Scorpio, its place of detriment. And then we already have Mars moving through Cancer, its place of fall, and Jupiter moving through Gemini, its place of detriment. Planets in detriment and fall are under resourced. They don't have access to all of the things that would be ideal for them to be the most clear and authentic version of themselves. They kind of just have to make do with what's available. They have to work a little harder. They have to find unconventional ways of doing things. So when we have transiting planets in these conditions, the energy can feel a little bit up and down, back and forth, one step forward, two steps to the right. For example, Libra is so much about the other and being in relationships, while the sun is very much about the self. It's a sort of solo energy. The sun is meant to express itself without filter, without worrying about how that expression might tip the scale in one direction or the other. And so in Libra, its ability to express itself, to radiate its light, again, without filter, without worry, becomes somewhat restricted. It's filtered through a lens of moderation and more concern for the other person. And that energy can help us to be more relatable or like find common ground a little easier with others. But like we talked about, it can also manifest as people pleasing. One little side note here, I just want to make it clear that if you have a planet in detriment or fall in your natal chart, it does not spell disaster for you. Having a planet in this, yes, more challenging condition is much different when we have it in the natal chart versus experiencing it as a transiting planet. I don't want to erase or dismiss any of the legitimate difficulties that having these kinds of placements can bring up. But in a natal chart, we have a lifetime to work with and develop those placements. Whereas by transit, we have a very short amount of time. And sometimes it's really just about surviving that transit rather than thriving. Now, every Libra season is going to bring this inherent challenge because the sun is always going to be in fall in Libra. So the sun's always going to have to find these alternative or different ways of expressing itself, which I actually think is kind of beautiful when you consider that this is the time of year when the sun is beginning to wane. Again, we're going into the darker half of the year here in the Northern Hemisphere. So I think it's just a nice reflection. It's a very nice, like, as above, so below kind of thing, but it can make for some very inconsistent energy, which is just going to be further emphasized this year with Venus, Libra's ruler, also being in difficult condition for the large majority of Libra season. Venus is going to be in Scorpio, where it has to do things through the lens of Mars, which is the ruler of Scorpio. And Mars isn't really super keen on relationships or beauty or fairness in the way that Venus is. Where Mars is sharp, Venus is soft. And so with Venus in Scorpio, our relationships are being put to a little bit of a test. We're wanting to peel back some of the layers, take a closer look at those dynamics. We're kind of wanting to poke and prod and really figure things out, which isn't totally a bad thing. Like, long lasting relationships need deep honesty and raw vulnerability in order to stand the test of time. But those aren't always the most beautiful or pleasant ways of interacting with others. But love and relationships are messy and imperfect, and this is a chance to face that and embrace that. Venus in Scorpio really does take us to the edge of what's comfortable, which will be different for everybody, but it does take us to our edges in that way. It invites us to challenge mainstream standards of relationships and of beauty and of pleasure, and to be honest about what we truly desire, even if other people might think it's a little taboo or dark. Also, I think it's worth noting that Venus's first and last aspect that it makes during Libra season, both of them are going to be with Pluto. So I do anticipate that this will be a season where we're really wanting to cultivate a deeper trust and intimacy within all of our relationships. Small talk will not cut deep enough to satisfy the kinds of connections that we're going to be wanting to create, that we're going to be craving to create. Loyalty, honesty, and being really, really, really real is going to be a high priority. And then, as I've mentioned, we've also got Mars and Jupiter moving through signs that they find challenging, that they have difficulty in. And when you consider that we've got the Sun, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter all moving through difficult places, that means that we have 7 of 12 zodiac signs with their planetary rulers going through a bit of a rough patch. And so that's going to give an overall bumpy, crunchy, wobbly vibe. Things are in an altered or reduced state. And we can't forget that we are also in eclipse season, which adds its own topsy-turvy, unsettled influx energy to the mix. So, brass tacks, the next few weeks might have us feeling a little out of place, a little out of pace, a little inconsistent, a little uncertain. Things are adjusting. Things might take more effort and more attention than we're used to. It kind of feels like the stuff that isn't working is just going to be a little bit louder, maybe a lot louder, and more in our face, less easy to tolerate. There's this sense that we're kind of in the dark about a lot of stuff right now, which means we have less control, and that can be really annoying. When things get annoying and frustrating, don't ignore that. I think that there's enough indicators in the cosmic mix right now that are telling us pay attention to that. We maybe don't want to, like, fly off the handle and say things we're going to regret. Like, we don't want to react from a place of anger, but I don't think we want to ignore and stuff the anger down either. Venus and Scorpio wants us to navigate our more difficult and more tricky, sticky emotions. Mars and Cancer wants us to do the same as well. So I think we want to pay attention to those more uncomfortable, rough around the edges feelings that are coming up, but we don't necessarily have to let them guide us totally. Like we can just clock that they're happening, try to find the root cause, explore them, navigate them, dig a little deeper. Now, I do want to leave you with two slightly more optimistic viewpoints. Slightly. The least of which is that this transition into Libra season, into fall, I wonder if it's not going to feel like a super big deal because we have already had Mars and Jupiter moving through the signs of their fall and detriment, respectively. We've already been in eclipse season, and we were just in Virgo season, which is a mutable season, which is also very much about being in flux and being changeable and shape changing and all that kind of thing. So yes, we are adding the Sun and Venus to the list of planets being in challenging condition. And certainly we are still, very much in the thick of eclipse season. But I wonder if it's just not really that jarring. I wonder if it's just kind of more of the same, more intensity to all of this influx and fluid nature of everything, fluctuating nature of everything, which is like, that's not great, but it's also just like, it's not like, whoa, oh my gosh, that's like so jarring. Like maybe we're not thrown off track because we were already off track. And slightly more positive than that is the fact that planets in challenging condition and eclipse season, they do they make way for new perspectives to be integrated or to at least come about. All that influx energy just really tends to shake up the perspective. It can turn things on its head, turn things sideways, whatever it is, we get a new look at something. And at the very least, they tend to make it clear what's not as functional or in a groove as it could be. And I think sometimes being asked to work outside of our parameters can offer the chance to find not just a new way of doing things, but ultimately a better one. And look, this won't last forever. Scorpio season will come. Trust me, Scorpio season will come. So it's just a couple of weeks. We will make it through. I know we will. And in the description for this video, I've outlined some key dates for Libra season 2024. I'll definitely be back to talk about the solar eclipse happening at the beginning of October. But if there's another transit that you're interested in hearing about, definitely let me know in the comments. I would love to chat about whatever y'all are interested in. And let me know, are you looking forward to this change in season and weather? Do you celebrate the equinox? If you do, what are your rituals? What are your practices? I would love to know. And let me know how eclipse season has been for you so far. So far for me, I mean, I'm talking about all this influx, fluctuation, changeable energy. It's been there. It's real. It's there for me. So let me know. I would love to chat with you about it. And thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, please remember to like and subscribe. It's super helpful and it's super free. And I will be back soon with more astrology insights and other cosmic chit chat. But until then, I'll catch you in the cosmos.